Mic's not on. Mic is on. Welcome to the Piqua City Commission regular meeting Tuesday, November 19th. Let's begin by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Mayor Lee,
Here.
Commissioner Vetter,
Here.
Commissioner Simmons,
Here.
Commissioner Holman,
Here.
Commissioner DeBras.
Here.
I need a motion to adjourn to executive session. The executive session is to prepare for and review negotiations on compensation or other terms and conditions of employment for city personnel.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Can the clerk call the roll?
Mayor Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Vetter,
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons,
Aye.
Commissioner Holman,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBras.
Aye.
We are adjourned to executive session. We will be back. All right, we are back in session. I need a motion to adjourn from executive session.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Can I have a roll call?
Mayor Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Vetter,
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons,
Aye.
Commissioner Holman,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBras.
Aye.
All right. Next on our agenda is a work session for sanitation services.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is going to be a continuation of the conversation that we've been having over the last couple of months in regards to the city's sanitation services. Melissa, I'm going to try the, did I do that or you?
Yes, that was
Okay,
you.
great, thank you. So before you, we've prepared some information for you to look at. And the first item is just a timeline of kind of where we began this conversation and where we're at today. So we started looking at the sanitation services as the staff started preparing documents for the 2025 budget. And Brian started getting quotes and cost estimates and things in line to know not only for 2025, but the next 5 years, what the sanitation service fund would look like. And we quickly began to see that we were going to have some challenges. When we met with the commission in September, we outlined those challenges for you and gave you some information in regards to what we were facing and what the economics were going to look like. So that kind of brings us to today, where we want to continue on with that conversation. The challenges that we outlined and gave detail on were in regards to staffing. We talked about recruitment and retention concerns, high turnover in the department, our reliance on temporary staffing, which has become increasingly cumbersome for us. We talked about vehicles and equipment and the large increases that Brian quickly found when he went out to quote replacements of our vehicles. We talked about trying to maintain a competitive rate structure for the service, and that we would be looking at potential rate increase needs. We talked about liability and safety concerns. Sanitation collection services are notoriously one of the most dangerous jobs in the country. So, we've continued to have that concern and looking at safety for the employees. And we also talked about other operational costs that we knew were going to be increasing, including the big one would be the 18% increase that we're facing for our disposal costs. So when we look at sanitation, it's a pretty simple budget structure. There's three main components to it. It's the staff, it's the vehicles, and it's the disposal cost. And we're facing challenges in all three of those areas with pretty significant increases to the costs. So we started talking about what are our options to deal with those challenges. And first off, we talked about rate adjustments, which we know we will have to have. We talked about service model reductions, looking at ways to cut costs, to keep costs down, which would mean looking at the operations and the processes that we go through and potential changes there. We talked about the need to update our staffing model, which would result in increased costs. We would like to reduce our reliance on that temporary staffing, look at increased full-time employees to make sure we are managing the service appropriately. And we also then talked about exploring contractual services to provide for the sanitation collection. We then talked about, okay, how are we going to follow up and make sure that we're looking into all of these things? We talked about the need to notify and negotiate with the AFSCME union because the employees are a part of that union and we have a collective bargaining agreement in place. We did notify AFSCME that we wanted to go into negotiations and discussions regarding this option, which we have done. We talked about sending out an RFP for services, which we have done, and I'm going to explain to you what we received back on that. And just further exploring our staffing model and service models and how that might pan out in the coming years. And we talked about our need for a communications plan, which we have begun discussions on how we would get any information out to the community that we would need to in regards to this. We did put out a RFP for the services, and we received one response back from Rumpke of Ohio. They provided a very competitive rate structure over a 5-year period with the option to renew for additional up to 5 years, so potentially a 10-year contract. The potential time frame that they would be looking at to begin service was April 1st of 2025, so giving them and us some time to do a transition period. They talked about in their RFP their communication plan during the transition and that their service would be similar to our service we currently provide, including routes and carts and all of those things. But noting for this evening that the details of how all of that would work would need to be ironed out in a contract. So if we decided to go that route, we would go into contract negotiations with Rumpke to iron out the details, and then the commission would need to authorize the city manager to enter into that contract. So probably the part of biggest interest to everyone would be what does the cost look like? So we have a comparison here of a couple of the rates in terms of structure. And what this shows is for a standard service, which standard service is considered our customers that have one 96-gallon trash cart and one recycling cart. Those are our standard, pretty much 80% of people, I think, are on that level of service. And what we had proposed for the city services would need to be about 15% rate increases over the next 5 years to accommodate for our capital needs of a little over $3.5 million in capital needs over that time period. The contracted services that Rumpke was proposing are listed there, and you can see they start out a little bit higher in '25 than what we would be proposing, but quickly our costs escalate after the first year, where theirs is a 5% increase. Next, just for comparison, is our small quantity trash and recycling users. These are our customers that are utilizing the little tiny carts, the 32-gallon carts. I think we have about a little over 1,000 customers on this rate structure. And again, you can see that the city services, we'd be looking at a 15% increase over the next 5 years compared to the 5% offered by the contractor. So what that equates to on an annual comparison, when we look at what would the city be charging the customers for the city services, over the 5 years, we'd be looking to receive revenue of over $19 million over the 5-year time frame, whereas the contracted services, the city would be paying to the contractor a little under $15.5 million, so a difference of almost $4 million over 5 years. So what we're looking at here was just kind of a conversation starter. We started looking at what are the pros and cons of each system of providing the services. And when we look at city services, obviously there is a lot of advantages to having services in-house, including essentially we have all the control. We have control over managing the employees, managing the collection system, managing customer service and how we respond to complaints, and ultimately control over the rates, although they are subject to how much it costs to provide the service. Cons are what we've already kind of talked about, all of those challenges that we're facing. So we have a pretty significant recruitment and retention challenge, the safety and liability, our need to increase our staffing level, which would increase costs increase of our fleet, and increases to other operational costs, like we talked about the disposal. We would be facing large rate increases over the next 5 to 7 years to continue to provide the service at the level that we currently are. For contracted services, pros would be essentially eliminating all of those challenges that we are facing and transferring those challenges and the risk to the contractor. And we would then have a known rate structure for 5 or 10 years. The cons to contracted services is, not having the same level of control over the service, the level of customer service. We don't know. There are certain provisions in the contract that we could manage. Things like if a complaint is lodged, the contractor has to respond within 24 hours. So there is some provisions to maintain service levels, but we certainly would have less direct managerial oversight of employees and practices and those things. And certainly there are many more pros and cons. This was just, again, starting the discussion. So when we look at the future in terms of the sanitation services, next steps for either option are kind of listed out here. If we maintain city services, we would certainly be updating our staffing model. That is a large pain point for us, and we would be looking to modify that in some way. Updates to our service model, we would be looking at cost containment. Are there strategies and ways that we could lower costs with things such as less frequent collection of bulk items or the recycling? Are there some cuts that we could do to the service to contain the costs? We would need to then, moving forward, if the decision were made to keep services in-house, the 2025 budget is being presented to you tonight. We did not incorporate many of these needed changes into that budget, so we would be coming back to you. We would make a modification to the presented budget tonight, probably in the third reading, to give us time to make those adjustments. And we would also then be bringing to you rate increase legislation to get those needed rate increases in place. The commission would need to approve those. On the contracted services side, we would need to go into contract negotiations, which, could take a couple of weeks, hopefully, not too long. Then we would need commission to authorize the city manager to enter into that contract, hopefully by the end of the year or at the second meeting in December. And then that would give the contractor the first quarter of '25 to mobilize and be ready to provide services on April the 1st. So that was kind of a lot of information in a short amount of time. So what we were hoping now is that commission, if you have any additional questions, any additional information that you would like from us in regards to this topic, Brian and Catherine can work on gathering that information and get it back to you in whatever manner you would prefer.
Absolutely. As this is more of as a resident than as a commissioner. If we did go with the contracted services, am I paying for my garbage to, am I making a check out to or paying Rumpke, or am I paying the city?
Right, so those are some of the issues that we would be working out in the contract, but the proposal from Rumpke was that the city would continue to provide the billing on the standard service, and then additional services above and beyond the standard, Rumpke could potentially bill for those. So for example, if the standard service is that you have one trash cart and one recycling cart, if you wanted to have 2 or 3 trash carts, you could potentially be billed for that, those additional services from Rumpke. And again, those are things that we would have to be working out during the contract negotiation.
And we would do those at cost too.
Excuse me?
We would do those at cost. I mean, we wouldn't be we wouldn't be setting this up so that we're making money off of our citizens.
Correct. No, as an enterprise fund, we are required to bring in enough revenue to cover our costs.
Okay.
We're not in the business of making money.
How much is in that fund?
Currently, in the sanitation fund, it's about $3 million.
And none of that could be used to offset some of the, if we were to maintain our own services, none of that could be used to offset some of the costs?
That was included in our cost projections.
I know a lot of citizens over the last few weeks, just as they've become aware of this, have suggested any number of things that could help resolve this, and I'm sure it's not any one decision or managerial style, that it's kind of the whole thing collectively, but one that I'm more familiar with is the discussion of bulk pickup. So Piqua has a very unique situation of infinite, unlimited, every day of the week, every week of the year, bulk pickup. And before the commission, I was on the utility board, and I know we've been discussing for at least 2 years changing the bulk pickup schedule. Bulk pickup, when the guys get there with the truck, the bulk stuff is really hard on the equipment. It really ramps up that wear and tear on the trucks. It's usually a little more dangerous because now you've got to go out and special handle bulk items. And then now you're also doing additional unplanned round trips to go take it off to the drop-off site. So I know that we've been talking about that for 2 years. It seems pretty simple to just stop doing bulk pickup as many times. A lot of the citizens I've talked to over the last few years have said that they'd be perfectly fine with, a once a quarter or even down to a once a year. So why is something as simple as that kind of a change not occurred yet?
Right, because I think that the amount of change in how much that is actually going to save is going to be fairly minimal. We are going to each house every week anyways. So it's not that we get to cut our route size in half or something. We are still going to those houses and picking up trash. So if we happen to have to throw in another chair or a mattress or what have you, we're there anyways. So it's not going to save on time. It could potentially save on our disposal cost, but even if we go to quarterly or annually pickup, we're still going to be collecting the same number of items. Whether we pick the chairs and the mattresses up every week or once a quarter, the likelihood is we're still going to have the same amount of tonnage.
Well, if the truck can do, let's say, 30 blocks on average before it needs to go to the dump site, but all of a sudden somebody's doing some spring cleaning and now they've got 2 mattresses out there. Well, now you only do 15 blocks and now you've got to run back again. I mean, that uses up some wear and tear, and that uses up. So, and again, I preface this with not any one thing is going to solve the whole issue. So the question was more of a general managerial style and culture of something that was small to fix, even if it had a small impact. Why was that not done? Is it just because every little thing is just not enough to make a big difference, so we didn't do any of them, or?
I mean, no, not necessarily. Again, typically a truck is only going to the transfer station once a day. So even again, if we eliminated bulk pickup, we're still going to the transfer station once per day. There are some days of the week that they have to go twice, depending on the size of the route, that type of thing. But again, that is something that if we decide to keep in-house, we probably would look at cutting service. We also looked at, would we want to institute some kind of a call-in system where if you had a bulk item, you had to call it in, so we weren't out just searching for them. We knew where they are. But that would require us to have some kind of system in place, hopefully an automated system, to be able to manage that.
Let me ask, under our current system, if I had 2 trash cans and 2 recycle bins, I'm still charged the same amount as a person that had 1, is that correct?
No. We currently have a large quantity generator, which if you have more than the standard amount, it's, I want to say it's 15% higher. Do you know, Brian? It's an increase in the standard cost then.
Is that the same for Rumpke then?
They would be charging, I believe, $12 extra per cart, so it probably, I'd have to do the math and see. But again, those are, some of the issues that we would want to work out in the contract.
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
My understanding from earlier conversations was we are not the only city that is offering bulk pickup kinds of services. And I was under the impression that we were kind of unique at one point, and we are not.
No, most cities offer bulk collection, whether they use a contractor or do it themselves. Most offer some kind of large item pickup.
In the case where they offer it through a contractor, do residents pay a separate fee for the standard trash recycling and then a separate fee for the bulk pickup?
There is a model, some cities do that. Some contractors have a tag system where you have to pay, you buy a tag and then you attach that to the item, so they know that it was paid for, that type of thing. But what Rumpke was offering us in this service was the same that we are currently doing, where bulk items are included.
Okay, thank you.
We go from $25.74 in 2025 to $47.26 in 2030. That's almost a $22 increase. I've seen through various things here of, right, equipment, staffing, why, there's got to be something more, numbers-wise, to make this make sense. And I know you said this was a very high-level presentation, but you're going to have to give me a little bit more here as to why these numbers are increasing as drastically as what they are.
Yeah, so like I said, the three main items that make up the sanitation department are, first of all, employees. So we are proposing an increase to the number of employees in the department because of the challenges that we are facing. We are constantly and chronically understaffed. So we are looking at increasing the number of employees and reducing our reliance on temporary staff. We're, I believe in the next year, the increase of salaries is at 4%. So we're looking at that chunk of the budget probably increasing in the 6 to 7% range. And then we're looking at an 18% increase to the disposal cost, which our disposal cost is around $500,000 a year.
Is that 18% just
Over the
over
4
next year?
years.
It's over 4 years.
And then the vehicles, which Brian can speak to a little bit more, when he went out to look at the replacement costs on vehicles, we're looking at almost double in some cases of how much vehicles are going to cost from just 3 years ago. So the cost on fleet and that large chunk of the three big pieces of the pie is around 50%.
And the
In addition,
the retention schedule on the vehicles, do they all need replaced at the same time or once a year or what?
no, that's over like a 5 to 7 year period that we would be looking at replacements. So that's why when we looked at this, we looked out 5 to 7 years and we looked at our pro forma and where are we going to end up once we do these capital items, add the increases to all the other costs. And we found that by 2027, even with our healthy fund balance today, we would be in the negative.
Didn't we already have a contract with Rumpke?
We had contracted services with Rumpke probably 10 or 15 years ago, but just for recycling.
Why did we not renew that contract?
We decided at that time to bring recycling in-house. We, at that time, determined that, at that time, the costs would be cheaper.
So what's to say if we don't make these capital investments that in 5, 6 years after this is done, when Rumpke has to repurchase the vehicles for their fleet and their staffing issues, that it doesn't become cheaper for us to do this in-house?
Well, I think what a large company like Rumpke has the advantage of economies of scale. They have a fleet of over 2,000 vehicles, so they are replacing their vehicles every single year. They are getting a percentage replaced. And, you know, when you're buying that many vehicles from a manufacturer, their costs aren't escalating as much as someone trying to buy 1 or 2 vehicles. If I went to, you know, a truck manufacturer and said, I want to buy 10 vehicles from you every year for the next 100 years, you're going to get a better price than us who are trying to buy one truck every 5 years. In addition, one of the other large costs that we're facing are entire replacement of our trash and recycling carts, which is a huge investment. Rumpke, they are getting carts delivered to them every month. So they also have a standing order for carts that we can't compete with the level and scale of a company that large.
Why do we have to replace all of the carts?
The carts are approaching or at 10 years old, which is the warranty or the expected lifespan of the carts, and we're getting so many calls and complaints and requests for replacements because the carts are broken. The lids break very easily when they get to be this age. The wheels fall off. The bodies are actually cracking at this point. We can't keep up right now with the number of requests to replace carts.
Do we
So-
have them in the fleet?
Two last year.
Excuse me?
Do we have replacements on hand right now?
We keep a working supply of replacements, but we are woefully low. We don't have enough right now to meet the demand, so we need to make that order of the replacement carts, which I believe, Brian, just the carts are about over $1 million. So we are, that's one of the large capital costs that we're facing.
None of this that I saw anyway, are we addressing yard waste at all with this?
In terms of, will it be collected?
Yeah.
It would still be
How will
collected.
contracted services work with yard waste?
They would still collect it.
Okay. Just, I don't know, because we do it differently a little bit now. I mean, it doesn't go out necessarily with your garbage, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that
I
part.
said it doesn't necessarily go out like weekly with your garbage. Like if I have paper bags with the lawn trimmings in it, I gotta set those out.
Yeah, I think, again, that would be an item we would work out in the contract. I believe, though, what Rumpke was proposing was that there would be no separation needed for the yard waste. You wouldn't have to separate it. They do a lot of separation of items at their facilities. So we wouldn't be separately collecting yard waste.
Okay.
How soon would we need to make a decision on this if they were going to start in April?
By the end of the year is what we would propose, that we know by then, that we could notify them. If we wanted to do the first quarter as transition and mobilization, Brian and I were just talking about this. If I believe that their proposal would be good for 90 days. So, it's not indefinite that we have time to make the decision, but
With the employee retention issues, how long has that been going on?
I'd say the better part of 3 years.
And what corrective actions have been made to attempt to solve for that?
We've been offering employees a higher step at entry. Typically, we've been able to bring in AFSCME employees at step 1 and allow them to move through their step progression to top step on an annual basis as the contract dictates. But in order to remain competitive in the market, we've been bringing them in at a step 3, sometimes higher, at entry offer level to get them in the door with their CDL. The CDL market is especially competitive right now, Commissioner Homan. That's what's really the biggest challenge for us right now in the sanitation department.
yeah, and just anecdotally, when I would say even 5 or 6 years ago, when we would have a position open in sanitation, it was not uncommon for us to receive over 100 applicants. In the last probably 2 to 3 years, we're lucky to get 5 applicants. And so we've been forced then to hire some folks that probably aren't as skilled as what we are looking for or need, and we've had to release some of them during probation. We've had, a variety of issues with the caliber of.
Is that interest shift market-wide, or is that unique to Piqua?
No, that's market-wide.
So were we to attempt to continue on owning this process, you had said that we'd have to increase the number of employees. Is that just to increase the probability that somebody's not sick that day, or is that because would you be fine if we just had our current staff fully staffed, or do you actually need more employees in general?
Well, we actually need more employees in general. Our staff has for many years been woefully unhappy with our current staffing model with the utilization of the temporary staff. I think everyone would like to, if we continue, that we are no longer reliant upon that temporary staffing model. So we would definitely want to correct that situation. We also have, an issue with our supervisory staff for sanitation. Because we are constantly and chronically understaffed, the managers and supervisors are having to fill in the driver positions and others. And so the managerial and the customer service issues and all of those things that they are supposed to be attending to are not being attended to. So our complaints have dramatically increased, just strictly because we don't have the staff that we should have to provide this service at the level it should be.
What kind of staff increase are we talking about? Are we talking about 5, 10, 20?
I would say for the first year, we would want to increase 3 positions, and then we would assess whether or not we wanted to, because we currently are relying on 4 of the temporary staff. So we would want to assess after adding the first year if we need to add then in the second year.
What percentage increase would that represent of staff?
We currently have 7 positions. 2 of them are vacant. So
Call it a 50% increase in
yes.
staff. Okay.
How long have we relied on this temporary staffing model?
as long as I can remember. I mean, way before I was an employee here, 28 years ago.
So now we're going to decide to fix that?
Well, again, it hasn't, and this is what we're facing. All of these issues that we are talking about, it's like the perfect storm. They've all come to a head in this year, where these things, many of them were not a problem before. We had, again, over the life of my career here, the temporary staffing model worked fine. But over the last probably 2, 3, 4 years, the caliber of what we are getting from a temp agency is, not what we would expect out of the service that we would like to provide. They are very unreliable. We are constantly turning over. It's not uncommon for us from 1 month to the next to not have the same staff. Where before, we would get temporary workers that would stay with us for years, and they were great, wonderful employees, did a great job, really cared about what they were doing. That's just not the case today.
So, not to relitigate the past here, but if we had those type of people, why didn't we hire them?
We did in some cases. We brought on several of those temporary workers as permanent workers, but the vast majority of them do not have a CDL. So that is one thing that we would look at you know, if we kept the service in-house of, you know, what is our plan? Is it a model where we bring people on that don't have their CDL? And then the city would then have to incur that cost, which, if you know, the CDL costs have drastically gone up in the last couple of years due to new
I'm
regulations.
not familiar with CDLs. Can you explain the process? Like, how long does it take and how much does that cost for somebody to learn that?
Sure. Brian can.
Yeah, the typical cost to get a CDL, a lot of places are charging anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000 to get your commercial driver's license. It's anywhere from an 8-week course to a 16-week course, depending if you take it on the weekends or throughout the week. Just because you send somebody through that course, it is not guaranteed that they can drive a big vehicle and that they're going to pass that. Bringing on temporary staff, you know, gambling and making a large investment and paying $6,000 or $8,000, not guaranteeing that they're going to be able to pass a course. You pay that whether they pass that or not. That is a cost for the course. And that would probably not be something that we would want to incur. We would want them to pay for that and possibly up front and look at maybe, you know, reimbursing it if they passed it. It'd have to be something that we would think about if we did that.
And then I think maybe you did answer this. Are the wages competitive with, I mean, presumably other cities and other, you know, Rumpke's not having issues putting drivers in their seats?
Right. We're very competitive. We pay, I don't know for 100%, but I'm guessing we pay more than Rumpke.
Is there a way that you could offer a deal and a contract with people that will pay for it, but they have to stay on 3 years, or they pay it back?
Right. We would look at something like that. We've done that, I believe, Catherine, for other positions in the city. We've looked at a model like that.
I understand that this is an enterprise fund. However, I'm going to ask this question anyway. Is there any ability for the general fund to help offset or defray some of the costs to the citizens?
I was just looking at Jerry to confirm, and that's a no.
It's a commingling of funds, you can't do that.
I think we want to keep that as an enterprise fund that should pay all of its own costs.
Well, that wasn't the question. Is there the ability to do it, not should we do it?
Would you have to?
Yeah, I'd say no.
No. The answer I'm hearing is no.
Okay, thank you.
Where's the end of our runway here? If we were to punt this for a year and attempt to correct issues, is that too long and we're gonna run out of money? Or do we really need to, like, have we gotten to like the end of the road here?
That's a hard question to answer. I mean, we could do all kinds of things to punt it down the road if we wanted to. I think at this point, the staffing issue is non-negotiable in my mind. We have to deal with that issue. Whether we punted the cart replacement, for example, to, you know, several more years down the road, we're just going to continue to have the complaints from the citizens about the conditions of their carts. If we decide we would then delay replacement of vehicles. We already had to this year come back to commission to increase our budget for fleet maintenance because the cost to just maintain a truck has gone up astronomically.
Now, to my earlier point, doing bulk pickup for longer than, you know, not addressing that 2 years ago has increased the wear and tear on those things. You know, so.
I can tell you, I've talked to several people, that are not in favor of going to Rumpke or going outside our city services and keeping our sanitation services within the city. And they were not in any favor. Before the meeting tonight, guy came up, wanted to come to the meeting and said something. And his comment was, I'm not in favor of changing or going to Rumpke. I'm just-
Yeah, and I mean, this is a
Over here.
decision for the commission.
Yes, it is.
You know, and so we are just presenting you with the information of the challenges that we're facing and what it would potentially look like either way. We know there's pros and cons to both.
Any other comments from commissioners?
I was actually going to suggest what kind of got said about moving this down, you know, taking a year to study this and see what we can do, but with the issues that you're having with staffing, if I was in the middle of going to get hired for a job, would I take a job knowing that I was going to get outsourced after a year? No, I wouldn't. So we're kind of at that point then.
Well, you know, my suggestion that maybe we would wait a year would be contingent on, let's have an aggressive improvement plan to figure out if we can address some of these issues, rework cost structure, rework schedules in a way that mitigates this. I guess, has any of that been tried or attempted or discussed over the previous years? Or I think we kind of asked was, why didn't we see this coming, I guess, but it sounds like it all just came to a head together this year.
Yeah, again, it was kind of a perfect storm. And, we have no control over these large inflationary costs. I know there's multiple factors that are influencing the costs of vehicles and different things that we have no control over. We've been honestly, over the last 20 years, trying our hardest, and I think we've done a really good job of cost containment. We've scrimped by, we've had our employees not, they don't have a facility. They were working in a facility that was rodent infested. We had to move them out of there, and we're borrowing a space from another department. I mean, we have done everything we possibly could to keep costs low.
How long have the rates, when's the last time the rates have been increased?
I want to say it was 3 years ago.
Do you know what they increased by?
I do not.
I guess, but we don't have one in front of us. I guess I'd be interested in seeing what a third option might look like. Not, right now we're looking between continuing on as we are, which isn't sustainable, transferring it to Rumpke, which has a bunch of different question marks around it. The third option would be that we have an aggressive restructure of what we're providing, adjusting that bulk pickup schedule, restructuring. How do we, fee for additional bins? I think probably 15% is probably a little low. I would say something closer to what Rumpke's doing, a little bit more expensive for those additional services. That way we keep the base rate low, and if people want special stuff, well, we got to move more to an a la carte stage for
Yeah,
that.
I mean-
But I don't have one of those in front of me to look at is the problem.
Well, I mean, just to be clear, we are not proposing that we continue on as we are. Our proposal is we do what you are suggesting, a new model of sanitation and/or the contracted services. We cannot sustain the model that we are doing now. So we are not proposing that in the least. We're proposing a model where we increase our staffing, we look at cuts to service, we look at, whatever that may be, while maintaining a service that the customers are happy with. I don't think there's a room for us to say we're going to cut service, charge more, increase our staffing, continue to have vehicles that are on the roadway and not increase cost. I mean, it's just, that's what we're proposing.
Any other questions from commission? Since it's a work session, there's no comment, but please feel free to comment in the public, non-agenda public address later on, if you have anything to say about this, because I would like to hear from citizens your opinion. We're not making a decision right here and now, so I would like to hear what you guys have to say, because it's important. I'm not going to make a decision based on no input. We'd like to have your input. So, next on our agenda then is a motion to approve the business agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions about, no, okay. Moved and seconded. The business agenda has been approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's been approved. For the consent agenda, which is up next.
Approval of the minutes from the November 12th, 2024 regular city commission meeting.
Any comments from commission on the consent agenda? Any comments from, I have one from a citizen, Jim Alton-C. Yeah. Just state your name and your address, sir.
My name is Jim Altensey at 2313 Whitetail Lane. I'm a new citizen. We moved here in June, my wife and I, Mary Ann. So we're excited to be members of the community and very, very glad to be here. My first time, obviously, so forgive. Really just a clarification to make sure that I'm understanding the minutes. Really appreciate those being posted. The question, really the check that I wanted to make was within the commissioner's comment area. There's a statement that says there will be an opportunity for folks who showed up last time. It's talking about the two issues that are being deferred to Thursday on the 21st. So it's the two resolutions that are there regarding Deerfield and so forth. But there's a note within the minutes that does talk to, and I just want to point a clarification to make sure I understand. It says that the folks who showed up the last time, that would be the 12th of November meeting, to see what changes were made and to ask questions. Just a simple clarification, the folks that will be allowed to speak won't just be the ones that showed up last time. Hopefully, folks who come.
Anybody who wants to
That's
speak.
great.
Yeah.
I was sure that was the case.
I understand. I heard, someone sent me a message saying, only those who spoke last. I said, no, that's not true.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it wasn't truly literal, so
No.
forgive, just to make sure that there's
No, if
clarification.
you've got a question, you want to talk Thursday, please do.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Okay, thank you so much.
No, thank you for your question. I appreciate that.
Appreciate that. Thanks. Have a good evening.
And welcome to town.
Yes, thank you for coming. Welcome to town. I'll accept the motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor to approve the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Moving on to old business, ordinance number O-20-24 to second reading.
An ordinance authorizing the establishment of the Fire Department Ladder Truck Capital Projects Fund.
Jerry O'Brien, City Finance Director. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This ordinance establishes a fund in which to accumulate resources to eventually buy a ladder truck for the fire department. The funding mainly will be transfers out of the safety fund and any grant funding that the fire department might be able to secure for this purpose. So I'll take any questions.
Is there any benefit, Jerry, to having the title of that be Fire Truck Replacement Fund rather than just ladder truck? We're going to have to replace some other trucks along the way as well, and I don't know how we are equipped to replace those. I understand the need for the ladder truck, but I'm just asking a general question.
Well, certainly, if you'd want to change the name of the fund, I don't see any issue with that.
It would seem to me that over time, we're going to replace pumper trucks as well as ladder trucks and all kinds of things.
This fund, though, is intended only for the ladder truck. The ORC section that this was created under talks about, capital projects funds where you can accumulate resources for a period up to 10 years, and then you state the purpose of the fund and the resources that you expect to accumulate, And then those resources, need to be spent on that capital project.
So is it your opinion then that now that we're into the second reading, it probably ought to go forth as a fire truck, a ladder capital
Yes.
replacement
Correct.
fund? Okay.
I remain in adamant support of this. I know that several years ago, way before I was here, that there was an attempt to save for a ladder truck, and it's my understanding that safety fund, that piggy bank fund was reprioritized and did not go into a ladder truck.
Yep.
And then eventually this year, we were able to finally get one. I know that one we bought used, and so it's not going to have a full 20-year life, and we will need to replace it in 5 to 6 years. I think this is really great that we are creating a fund that cannot be reprioritized in the future based off what you told me last time, was that this fund really, once we put our money to save it in there, any future commissions cannot reprioritize this and use it on something else. I think that's great. I think that corrects the issue that happened last time, and it's a much firmer guarantee, as much as we possibly can, that we will be able to replace that ladder truck when we need to. And I think that's great.
Yeah, that's correct. The only way that the money has to either be spent on the fire truck or go back to the safety fund based on action of the commission.
Any other commissioners' comments? Public, Kim Heisler? All right. That will serve as a second reading then. We'll move on to new business. Ordinance number O-21-24, it's first reading.
An ordinance to approve the issuance of bonds for an energy improvement project at the Fort Piqua Plaza and the Piqua Municipal Government Complex.
Mayor and Commissioners, this ordinance will provide funding for a project for the City Hall building and the Fort Piqua Plaza building to provide new chillers and HVAC equipment. The equipment is, needing replaced, and this would provide funding for that project. There was a study done, an audit done of the systems that indicated that with these new improvements, it would save money, quite a bit of money, up about $190,000 a year on the cost of the operational costs and the cost of providing energy to those buildings. So this would partially be offset by the savings through replacing the equipment. So this would provide, and right now it's probably looking like we're going to issue about $3.2 million. I provided in the packet a scenario where it was $3 million or 3.8. We did recently confirm that we're getting a $600,000 grant toward this project. So that would reduce that from the 3.8 million by the 600,000, and we're still looking at whether we might be able to obtain a $250,000 grant. The source for these funds would be, transfers out of the general fund and transfers out of the Fort Piqua Plaza fund to pay for the debt service for this over a 20-year period.
Do you know how old the current systems are?
Pardon?
How old are the current systems?
I'm Bob Grazer, project manager for the city of Piqua. I was hired as a part to be the project manager for the Fort Piqua Plaza in 2007. Some of you weren't in office, of course, at that time. The Fort Piqua Plaza was constructed in 2007, and this building was also built in 2001.
So 23 years
The replacement for the aging HVAC is exceeding their lifetime. In the last 4 years, we have spent over $200,000 worth of expenses for repairs at the Fort Piqua Plaza alone. So it gives you a little indication of how much money we're spending on those repairs in the two buildings. They're aging. They're getting to the point where will become a critical situation if we do have a breakdown with our chillers or our boilers. We will not be able to maintain good working conditions within the building.
My understanding was that the chiller discussion came up in the capital improvements previous looks, and if we would approve this proposal, would that take the issue off of the capital improvements list?
Yes, it would. It would remove the chiller for this building, as well as, so a part of the plaza as well, that we want to replace the chiller for that as well, Commissioner Bennett.
I've personally had contact from a couple people who went to weddings at up at the hotel, and the air conditioning was not working well, and it made for, how shall I say, a very uncomfortable afternoon for guests who have paid fairly nice price to be able to rent a facility for a wedding. And so I don't need to be convinced that the chiller's aging.
Yes, we have representatives from Verigy Energy Electric, or Energy here that will be able to assist with any questions that we have regarding the project as well, if you're interested.
What's the life expectancy for the new units?
About 21 years is a good lifetime.
The plaza is intended to now be a profit center with our rentals. Where does that money flow to now, and will any of that money in the future be offsetting some of this cost?
Yeah, well, any money generated in the Fort Piqua Plaza Fund would go toward that debt service. So there would be transfers from that fund over to the debt service fund to pay for the principal and interest. So that money would help toward that.
Is there particular funds that those are going to, or are they just flowing into the general fund, and then we would reallocate it back out of the general fund?
So to do the project, we would create a capital projects fund for this, and the bond proceeds would all be put in that fund, and then the project done, and then over the next, as we start the repayment for the bonds, there would be a transfer out of the general fund over to the debt service fund. So that would just be general fund money that would be transferred over to pay for the general fund portion of it, which would be this building, the portion for this building.
And so then where did the profits from the Fort Piqua Plaza, where did those end up at? Did those just go directly into the general fund?
Those would go into the Fort Piqua Plaza Fund.
Okay, so can we scoop out of the Fort Piqua Plaza Fund for the ones that are benefiting, or the area that's benefiting from the HVAC, to pay for some of that debt service rather than going back to the general fund?
Well, part of the debt service portion for the Fort Piqua Plaza building would come from that fund. So any revenues that fund generates, that business generates, would be in that fund and would be part of what pays for those debt service payments for that portion of the project. The part coming out of the general fund would just be to pay for the portion of the project here in this building.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was trying to get to. Okay, so, all right, yeah, so the expense at Fort Piqua Plaza will then be paid for by revenue at Fort Piqua Plaza?
Correct.
Perfect.
Yes.
A long way around. Any other commissioners' comments? Jim Meisler?
Hello, 1802 West Parkway, Kim Heisler. The biggest question I have is, I understand that stuff has to be, upkept and stuff like that, but do we even have a profit at Fort Piqua Hotel yet?
Do you want us to answer, or do you just wait till you're done?
That's my biggest question, because should we look at this? Last I heard, we weren't making any money. We had Hampton Inn come in and was going to pay them extra if they actually got venues in here, and if we could turn a profit and stuff. I haven't heard any updates. But if we're not turning a profit, it seems kind of backwards to fix this stuff. We need to make it profitable to be able to have the money to be able to fix this stuff. So yeah, you can answer now.
It's typically not how businesses operate, where you don't invest in the company unless it's making money. But I'll let Jerry, if you know what the current revenue structure is at the plaza. From my understanding, anecdotally, it was doing pretty well this year.
Yeah, I don't have those figures with me. However, the equipment needs replaced, so whatever, that's why we're taking out the debt and we'll pay for it over time, since we don't have the cash balance to pay for it all at once. However, we need the equipment, so whether we're making money at Fort Piqua Plaza or not, we still need heating and cooling.
Yeah, I would imagine that if the HVAC were to go out completely, the future revenue potential of the plaza would drop to probably zero, right?
Actually, probably below that, because we would have to, if this goes out, so the lead time on this equipment is several months to get the equipment in for the project. If it would go out, we would have to rent equipment to heat or cool depending on the season, which would be very expensive, so we'd have that on top of going ahead and doing the project.
Is it possible to get the figures and find out how it's doing?
Yeah, does anybody over there know?
Yeah, if we could get a figure to find out, like in the last 5
Even an
years,
estimate?
what we've actually, in the income we've actually made from that, that would be great.
My understanding was we're going to get several reports, either at the end of the year or pretty quickly, about the golf course, the hotel, several other those places where we've been asking questions.
Okay, we're close to the end of the year, but,
Well, that's when budget time comes up, so that you'll get answers then.
yeah, but it would be nice to get them
Yeah,
Next Tuesday,
as
come to the budget meeting.
they're sooner than later, right? Thanks.
Yeah, I can provide a report, we'll bring that to the commission, let you see those figures.
Appreciated.
It would also be an energy, the amount of money we would be saving from our energy would also pay about 60% of this payment that we would have. So our energy efficiency that we would gain by this would also offset the costs that we will have for the bonds themselves.
I think a few of the other commissioners have some questions, but I do want to come back to that, which you said that the HVAC guys are here. I'd like to hear more about some of the tech that would lead to that 60% in efficiency jump, but we can save that for, I think,
They're
you have a
here.
question. Yeah, I think Mr. DeBras had a question, though.
I don't have a question, Mayor, so much as I have a statement or a comment.
Okay.
I would appreciate the.
Go right
ability to
ahead,
make.
and then we'll,
So if my memory serves me correct, it was about 20 years ago that the city and the city administration, the city commission, and the residents decided to invest significantly in the revitalization and the redevelopment of the Fort Piqua Plaza Hotel. Now, we are getting to a point to where those initial investments are hitting their shelf life.
Yep.
And I feel it would be a huge failure for the commission or the city administration to not continue to invest in one of our most distinguishable and unique assets, just because the HVAC system hit its shelf life. And thank you for allowing me to make that
no
comment.
problem.
Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Chad Sewell. I'm Senior Development Engineer with Vergy, the consulting team that worked with Bob and his team to come up with this project. So I just wanted to go over the scopes that we're doing at each building, and then we'll talk about energy efficiency. So here at the admin building, the boilers and chillers are 23, 24 years old. So we replace them with high-efficiency chillers, high-efficiency boilers, new pumps, and VFDs. Also at this building, we'll be replacing all the fluorescent lighting with LED lights. And we'll install an HVAC control system. Right now, it's standalone, and it runs probably 24/7. So we'll be able to control it, put it on schedules, and save energy that way. We're going to probably mimic the same thing at the Piqua Plaza building. New chillers, high-efficiency chillers, new high-efficiency boilers, new pumps, new VFDs. We're going to do an LED lighting upgrade there as well, and HVAC controls to control their HVAC equipment as well.
Are you going to be overhauling any of the zoning or dampers in the plaza to help facilitate that? If the control system's a little bit smarter, is the air handling going to be a little bit smarter too?
Yes, absolutely.
What's the main chilling tech going to be based off of?
Like the manufacturer of the chillers?
Yeah, like what method? Are we using like refrigerant? Are we using like water? Are we using evaporators?
Yeah, so you have a chiller on the roof that provides chilled water to the fan coils and the VAV boxes around the building.
Okay.
So chilled water.
Is my understanding correct that the air conditioning system is also used by several of the renters in the space that we either rent or lease on the first level? And I think that was an issue at one point in time, that not only does it serve the hotel larger part,
Right.
but it also serves several of the lessors or renters.
Yes, the tenants are included in that, Jim.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
What's the difference, I guess, in the cooling technology between what you're proposing and what we have right now that would account for a 60% efficiency increase?
So we're not changing what you have right now, we're just updating it to higher efficiency. So different refrigerants in the chilled water system, VFDs, and then really controlling it better with new HVAC technology, controls technology. So putting things on schedule so they run less, they turn off when people aren't in the buildings, et cetera.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, thank you.
All righty, thank you for your time.
Any other commission comments?
Just echoing what Commissioner DeBras said. I feel like we've had a torch passed to us, and it would,
Crazy not to.
it would be crazy not to continue running with that.
All right, this will serve as a first reading for that ordinance. And moving on to ordinance number O-22-24, a first reading.
An ordinance repealing Schedule A of Chapter 33 of the Piqua Code and adopting a new Schedule A of Chapter 33 of the Piqua Code relating to wages of certain municipal employees.
Good evening, Commissioners. Schedule A is our compensation table that covers the salaries of our full-time non-bargaining unit employees. There are 6 steps in each classification, and we are proposing to modify the salary schedule with a cost of living adjustment for these employees.
Any comments from commissioners?
Can you state publicly what that percentage increase is?
Yes, I'm sorry, of course, 3%.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
That was it for me, Mayor.
Any comments from Kim Heisler?
(1802) West Parkway Drive. I understand everybody's doing great jobs. They always look forward to cost of living. We, the citizens of Piqua, don't necessarily get a cost of living. We just get bigger bills. And I know the city manager's just got a big raise also, and that's also an increase across the board with that, as far as I think. 1%, 2% is great too. It just seems like our money is a little bit of a time just getting away from us, and it just, I don't know, we need the city to work for us for sure, and we're very grateful that they're doing their job just for 50 years. And I know this year it seems like we have tons of businesses coming in. We got Lock 9, tons of money spent on that. Not sure, no income coming from that, but it just seems like there's so much money going out, almost squandered. And I know we need some of this stuff. I'm for the Fort Hotel also, to keep that alive. But we have to have something that's going to bring us back money. And it's going to be another year or two before all these businesses are here where we're actually going to get money back. I'm really afraid if we just continue going that, the city of Piqua might be bankrupt because, and I know this would be little, very little over the whole thing, but I think, Mr. Holman, you mentioned it earlier, these little tiny things really add up. And actually, I don't think it's tiny, but anyways, if that could be negotiated down, I'd be for that. All right, thanks.
Any other comments from commissioners?
No.
We'll leave that as a first reading and move on to ordinance number O-23-24.
An ordinance repealing Schedule A1 of Chapter 33 of the Piqua Code and adopting a new Schedule A1 of Chapter 33 of the Piqua Code relating to wages of certain municipal employees.
Thank you, Commissioners. Schedule A1 pertains to our part-time, seasonal, and temporary employees, and the wages for certain classifications on this table will be adjusted in accordance with state minimum wage requirements and cost of living adjustments.
Any questions from commissioners? Kim? Thank you. That'll serve as the first reading for that ordinance. Next is ordinance number O-24-24, first reading.
An ordinance authorizing the redemption of a portion of the city's $2,365,000 special obligation non-tax revenue bond, Series 2023, federally taxable, and authorizing related notices and all documents and all other actions related thereto.
Mayor and Commissioners, this ordinance is for the purpose of paying back part of the bonds that we borrowed last year for the Scott Drive project. So we issued those bonds to secure the property, and now that the developer is taking control of that property, the Dayton Miami County Port Authority is issuing bonds on their behalf, and we will get the proceeds from those bonds to pay back the bonds that we borrowed last year. At least a portion of those. The remainder of the bonds that we borrowed last year will be paid back over time from the TIF funds going into the TIF fund over time. I'll take any questions.
Any questions from commissioners?
Yeah, Jerry, you got to help me out here. How much did we issue in bonds? What did the city spend? What are we obligated to?
Okay, so last year, the bond issuance was $2,365,000.
Okay, great. I got
For that
that.
project.
Now, how much are we getting paid back?
So out of these proceeds, we'll use about 1.5 million of these proceeds, along with some money that was left over in the fund on the Scott Drive project that was not spent on the project. There was about $53,000 there, and then there was also will be about around $140,000 in premium proceeds were put into the debt service fund last year when we issued the bonds. So all of that money will be put toward the par value of the old bonds, which will be about $1.7 million.
Which is how much is coming back to us?
Yes, that is the amount that will be paid against the old bonds.
Got it. And then we're basically, then from the initial money or collateral that we put up to issue the bonds, we're still about $600,000 of that left to go as this site continues to develop and the proceeds come in from the TIF to make us whole.
Correct.
Thank you. That was it, Mayor. Sorry.
Does this have any time sensitivity? Do you need it passed sooner than the 3 readings?
No. This will take effect by the end of the year, and That's about when the port bonds are scheduled to go to market. So the timing should be about right.
On behalf of the commission and the community, thank you for getting this to us in time enough to do 3 readings on it.
You're welcome.
Any comment from the public? Kim Heisler? Nope. All right. That'll serve as the first reading. Next is ordinance number O-25-24.
An amended ordinance to make appropriations for the city of Piqua, Ohio for the year 2024.
Mayor and Commissioners, these are adjustments to the appropriations for this year due to various projects that were going on here at the end of the year, and I provided explanations on the different reasons for in the different funds, but if you'd have any questions, I'll take those.
Commissioners have any questions?
No statement. Good news is, I don't see anything on the list to add to the golf fund for the year, so it appears that, I'm thinking of end-of-year comments, but that's a good sign, because I think, this is my memory, but I think in the last several years that I've been on commission, I think we approved $100,000 last year and maybe $300,000 the year before that. So to go from taking general fund money to balance the golf deficit to the point where we no longer have to do that, that's progress.
That is.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, that's my recollection of the Gulf Fund as well. My recollection of this particular rebalancing at the end of the year of the budgets was that I think we got this as an emergency resolution on like December 16th last year, which I was not pleased with, because I thought that perhaps, over the course of 11 months, we would be able to project that, hey, we need to shuffle some money around towards the end of the year. So again, thank you very much for looking ahead and getting this to us so we have time for the 3 readings, and can adjust it without having to have it be an emergency. I think everybody's a little exhausted of all the emergencies all the time. So again, thank you very much, doing a good job of keeping ahead of all of this and keeping it on the right timelines.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. And as I stated last year, the intent is to, keep up with the appropriations as we go along. So as there are changes throughout the year, then my intent is to bring those forward to commission for request.
And Mayor, I'd just like to add, Jerry's done an outstanding job, and we had 2 finance directors last year. And so trying to work through different accounting methodologies and correcting some of the things that fell between the gaps before we onboarded Jerry. I think he did an outstanding job to get that at the end of the year so that we were legal, and then this year to get ahead of it, and I want to thank him.
I agree. Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from commissioners? Kim Heisler? Nancy Roof?
Nancy Roof, 208 North Downing. I saw the line item in this for the fire committee that it's going to be an increase of $23,000, and I understood that the lawyer was hired for 10, so I'm just wondering what the increase is.
Good question.
It was my understanding that we needed those appropriations for to carry us out through the end of the year as we, contract with the legal counsel for that.
Yeah, I believe it was the 7,000 plus the 23 is 30, and it was authorized the first 10,000, but it was resources put into place for up to 30,000.
Up to.
So has that, if I understand you correctly, then you mean to say that not necessarily $30,000 has been spent out of
It
that?
would just be appropriated.
Okay.
So is the 23,000 in addition to the 10, or is that part of the 10?
In addition to the 7.
So it's 30 appropriated overall, but we haven't spent nearly that much, and very well may not. But appropriations are there so that the fire committee can move forward, without having to worry about coming back to commission or anything.
But the 10,000 that's locked in. And so,
That is correct. Yeah, I think there was 10 already.
Yeah, we've already contracted to
Yeah.
pay that.
and the rest is just in case.
In case.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
So a better word to use here instead of appropriating would be, we're authorizing.
That is correct. Yeah, appropriations doesn't mean at all that we'll spend it. It's just that the commission has given permission to spend it if we need to. And any appropriations that are not spent at year end lapse and are no longer, it's not legal to spend out those appropriations after December 31st, so they just go away.
Okay, so this is only for the end of the year then? Okay.
Yeah, it carries us through to December 31st.
Okay.
Any other comments? That will serve as a first reading then. And our final item of new business is ordinance number O-26-24. It's a first reading.
An ordinance to make appropriations for the city of Piqua, Ohio for the year 2025.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is the budget and the appropriation ordinance starting as of January 1st of '25. And we will be bringing information forward at the November 26th meeting to have a work session to go into more detail with the commission on the budget and the operating budget and the CIP budget. So, and I'll take any questions if you have any.
Any
Jerry?
questions? Yeah.
Yes.
What page is the Economic Development Fund on?
Let's see.
Would that be section 16 on page 59 of 71?
That's CDBG.
That's
You
CHIP,
read-
CDBG, yeah.
No.
Check.
No, the one below CHIP.
Yeah, 16.
Block, huh?
Section 23 is community.
Yeah, section 23. That's Fund 135.
There you go.
Okay.
It's very similar.
Community development.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from commission? Go ahead.
Will that presentation involve some more pictures and arrows perhaps?
Yes, yeah.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Any coffee with that?
Pardon?
No.
I'll bring you wine.
Bullet points, lots of bullet points.
All right, so no questions from Kim, she said. So that will conclude our new items. On the commissioner's comments, does the city manager have anything to say?
I don't this evening, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's start at the other end and start with Commissioner DeBras tonight.
Mayor, I don't have a whole lot tonight. I am eagerly awaiting Thursday evening to see the presentation from the developer and the planning department regarding their request for the zoning change. So I will yield back my time and wait for Thursday.
Thank you. Commissioner Vetter?
I have several things. First of all, for people who are interested in the Moat Park building, we're talking about having an open discussion about the future of the Moat Park building. It looks like we may be able to schedule that sometime, probably in January or February. It'll probably be here in the commission chambers. It'll probably be maybe 7 o'clock in the evening, although that time has not been set. And it's an opportunity for people who have interest, questions, comments about the Moat Park building to come express their concerns and their interest in that. And I think it's a good way to start the conversation. It won't end there, but it will start there. Secondly, I'm hoping that when I see the draft of the 2025 budget, that we have increased our allotment for our cat project, one of my pet things. Wrong term, I guess. I like dogs too, but that's a different issue. If you're not aware, there is discussion about going to a resolution that will allow chickens to be present in the city under certain circumstances. That has been discussed and looks like it's going to be rediscussed. And so if you have questions, concerns, comments about that, feel free to contact me or any of the commissioners about that one. It's not on the table currently, but it's in discussion. I wanted to comment, Kevin and I have talked about a mailing that went out to a lot of us who live in, I'm going to say, older homes, and this is a letter that Piqua has been forced to put out. It's an EPA letter, and most of the content of this letter is really not Piqua generated, it's EPA generated, talking about lead in the water and lead lines. So what we're doing is starting the process. We're not alone. My understanding was there were 7,000 letters that were sent out to people for whom we could not identify the type of line that comes into their house from the street. And so there's a process that you can do your own sampling. If you are curious about that, I will be doing that. And I think there's more information to be coming. It's not an emergency letter in the sense that you have to do something by a certain date, but it's a good heads-up letter to help us appreciate that we simply haven't traced that very well, and we need to find out what's out there for water lines coming in. And it's not something that the city is choosing to do independently. This is an issue that comes from the federal EPA. So if you have questions, the response, of course, is to the underground utility system, and I think my questions were answered, and I think we'll have a opportunity to ask some more questions and do that. But please be aware, it's not an emergency letter. You don't have to rush out today and replace your water line. We're just talking about sampling, trying to find out where potential problems could be, and there'll be a process to that. I think we have, Kevin, I'm looking at you, I think you said 3 years to complete the study?
This is basically an inventory of all the homeowners' material going into their house. We did not know the material, we had to send out the unknown letter. We have a plan of action to start ramping up how much we know. The last 2 years, we figured out what our side was of the materials. Now we need to start bringing down to the homeowners.
Sure.
Very good. Thank you. I yield.
All right. Commissioner Homan.
My only comment is, as I discussed last time, I have an interest in not putting fluoride in the water. We have discussed that with city staff and reviewed state law, and that appears to be a thing that the state of Ohio would come shut us down, and it wouldn't matter if there was lead in your water pipes because you'd not be getting any water at all. So at this point, this remains something that you need to be talking to your state congressman about. It does appear that there's some interest on the federal level to stop doing that as well. And I remain interested in creating some kind of trigger law so that as soon as is legally available to the city, we could potentially have that be a trigger that would immediately cease fluorinating the water. And that is all I have tonight.
Awesome. Commissioner Simmons.
Oh, you're not going to go first?
No.
All right. Fine. Oh,
I
you
get
to
that.
go
I get
last.
the
So,
privilege. Yes.
Yes, I have been talking with residents and city law director and the mayor and commissioners about doing the a chicken ordinance. I want to make sure if you own or operate a restaurant here in town, don't worry, we're not going to stop buying chickens. Jeff, I want my chickens, man. Chicken dinner. Gotcha. Covered. Okay. But yes, we're definitely going to bring that up. The other thing I wanted to mention, since we're talking about not waiting till the last minute. I want to get things started on preparing for a radio class for next year, probably around February. February is a really good time. So if you're interested in amateur radio and you would like to take the class and you'd like to show up for the class, he saw me looking at him.
I wasn't looking at him because
Canceled on.
I had to cancel because of work. I'm sorry.
All right.
I would love to do it.
But no, if you would like to get involved with that, please see me after the meeting.
All right. Thank you. I don't have anything. Piqua basketball is about to start up, so if you're a basketball fan, you can watch some good high school games, and Lehman basketball is about to start up, so I have a senior in high school that plays basketball. Currently, he's under concussion protocol because of football, so he's not playing basketball yet, but he will be, so I keep the clock at the scorers table, so I'll be doing that on Fridays and Saturdays, so. But other than that, we do appreciate our city employees. We appreciate the hard work and the diligence and the dedication that they have to the city, and appreciate the job that they do, and we can show our appreciation through a cost of living that's commensurate to the job that they do. So with that said, I'll take a motion to adjourn from regular business, and then stick around if you want to for the non-agenda public comment.
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
We are adjourned. Take a 5-minute break, and we will be back for the non-agenda public comment. We are now back on the record for non-agenda public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the city commission on non-agenda items. After the adjournment of the business agenda, comments will be limited to 7 minutes. And the only comment card I got was from Kim Heisler.
Hello, 1802 West Parker Drive, Kim. I have a few things here I'd like to say, and I agree with Frank when he said earlier the great Fort Piqua is such an iconic place. I think we need to do whatever we need to do to keep it there, because that's a really big part of the landscape of Piqua. We just need to make sure whatever's in there, that we can get quality so that we can get a return on our investment and get it working in our favor. Sanitation, no one ever wants to source it out, and I'm still having a hard time with spending $5 million on Lock 9, yet we don't have enough money to run our sanitation inside. That's just a comment. Also, I had a question about, our commission rules and stuff like that, where we have to state our name and address here. If we put it on the comment cards, why do we have to verbally speak it? It's up there on the screen also. It just seems like you guys know what it is. The whole reason we had comment cards was to find out if folks were local or not. The information is there. It's just like we're becoming targets if we actually speak it out loud. You can respond to that afterwards as to why we have to have it in multiple places. Chickens, I'm all for that. It's, with the prices and everything going up, having self-sustainability and being able to supply food for your family and possibly neighbors is, I think it's a must. There might be some things that have to get worked out, right, like fencing and stuff like that, but I think that's great. The fluoride in the water, I thank you for checking into that. I know for a fact that Hawaii doesn't put Florida in at all. I don't know how they're getting away with it. And I know last time you'd mentioned if it's that big of a concern, Kim, why don't you write your state and congressman? I'm asking you guys as commissioners to come together, present the city of Piqua. I'll do my part, but how cool would it be to have you guys, you five, representing the city of Piqua, sending in to our, congressman or whatever, and just taking a stand, at least asking, for the city of Piqua. I think that would be a great step to show that you really do care. I'm not saying you don't care, but I mean, it would be an outward way to actually do that. And the state of Ohio might see it differently than one person when you're representing 21,000. So thank you, and you can respond to that.
Okay, on the Lock 9 expense versus the sanitation expense, Commissioner DeBras was kind of getting into why can't we just move money into from the general fund to try to pad that out. From my understanding, the way the sanitation fund's an enterprise fund, and essentially, more or less, that means it needs to be independently profitable. It can't be subsidized. Certainly not easily. So Lock 9 is a different thing. It did not have to be independently profitable. It was a city initiative, kind of like the parks are not typically independently profitable. Stating your name is not for us. Stating your name is for everybody else watching us, for the rest of the public viewing to see who you are. You could be anybody. You could be a paid spokesperson for ESRG. The public would never know unless you state your name and who you are, and they can have some validity that what you're advocating and saying is a genuine citizen concern. And we don't have paid actors coming in pretending that they're, Joe from down the street. By having you state your name, that puts some, again, not perfect evidence. We aren't requiring you to show your driver's license and date of birth and social security number, but it gives us a little bit more visibility into who you are, and really gives the public and the viewers more visibility that you're a genuine person and not a corporation. And as for talking to a congressman or state congressman, certainly once we can figure out if we're going to do a trigger law of some kind or not, I think that would be great to bring to our state congressman. I think we just got a new one in our area. I plan to talk to him about some other stuff with the ODNR project as well, but I think that'd be a great topic to talk to him about.
I plan on writing a letter as well. I plan on writing a letter to our congressman and our senator about the removal and them pursuing something to that effect.
And again, just to reiterate why we can't just stop, the state would come in and seize the water plant and turn the water off, and then we would just have no water. So that's what we're looking at.
When I send my letter out, I'll ask if any of these guys want to sign it with me. If they do, I'll send you a copy of it so you can see.
I'd be in favor of us receiving a report that would look at the expenses for Lot 9 from when we opened it until the end of the year. We're paying money for groups to come in to perform, and it is a city park. And I'd be interested in just seeing, not so much, we can calculate the cost of what it's cost to develop it, but I'd be interested in seeing how much money we spent, and what do we anticipate the return is from that. And it'd be an interesting report. And to me, it's not that much different than the golf report or the Parlaza Piqua hotel report. Those are all areas where we have concerns and we're watching the money. So.
Another point on the fluoride as well, I did have the utilities director look into what our tested levels are and how much we're adding and how much is in the background of just the regular water that comes into the plant untreated. We are adding at the very minimum of what the state mandates, so it's a very small amount. It's the minimal amount possible. So we're doing our best to put as the smallest amount that we can. I'd also point out that it appears that our neighbors to the south in Troy somehow got an exemption decades and decades ago, and they do not have to fluoride in their water. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Great. Adam Cease is next.
I don't know if he's allowed to talk because he wasn't at his meeting last night.
Adam Cease, 1853 West Parkway, and I did email them and give them my updated email, and they never followed up with me, so I didn't even know there was a meeting because originally I was told it was canceled, but that's here nor there. I couldn't have made it anyways. Did anyone watch the Paul versus Tyson fight?
I watched.
Probably couldn't have because Netflix Stream was so terrible, but the only stream more terrible than Netflix Stream is the city's new live stream. And it's, don't blame the guy in the back because I've seen his work from other places and AJ does an awesome job. Can we put this back on YouTube until you guys can figure out how to fix this new software? Because you don't want to know how irritating it is to sit there, it's streaming, and then it resets. And then I got to hear you say the exact same thing 15 times. Finally, I just closed the lid on my computer, and that was the end of it. So that's number one.
Then you watch the whole thing the next day, right?
No, I didn't even bother to try because, yeah. Anyways, next thing, Rumpke. No. That's a big expletive no. My mom has Rumpke. She lives right outside the city, and that she hates it. But they're the only ones that offer trash pickup that has recycling, and she likes to do her duty and recycle. But I think she pays something like $36 to $40. I know it used to be a little over 40. She had 2 trash cans. I think I'm paying $24 for 2 96-gallon trash cans in a recycling bin. So I wouldn't have a problem with them raising it to 30 or 35 or whatever. But I would rather the price go up than have Rumpke. Half the time she comes home from work and their little arm, because I can see it on the camera that I put in her front of her house, their little arm has knocked the trash can into her big ditch and they don't bother to get out. They drive away. Too bad. She calls. Too bad. You can pay us to come back and pick it up again. Not a big fan of them. What else was I going to say? I don't know. The only thing I wanted to ask, but of course they're all gone now. If you look at the city budget from the 2021 and prior, and then 2021 and further with the current city manager, at least as many of them as you can see. There's one missing for last year that I would really like to see, but the city, I know there's some concerns people behind have had about the budget. That is online, that is something you can see, and running a business, I have to look at budgets. The city's is a little bit more complicated, but everything I can see in the budget is that the city's going in the right direction. It's been better every single year, especially in the last few years. So I'm going to assume that the one we don't have yet will look even better. And that's really all I had tonight. That stream, I have people begging me. That's why I'm here streaming it with a $500 camera and a cheap laptop. So I'm assuming that expensive $100,000 software should be able to do a better job. Definitely don't call Netflix if you need advice on how to stream. See you guys.
Thank you.
Adam, you made a comment that I think is ultimately at the crux of the decision that we're going to have to make, and that's regarding the sanitation services. You stated that you'd be willing to pay more. What was the dollar figure that you said you'd be willing to go to?
I will get to the microphone. I'll find out exactly what my mom pays, but like I said, I'm pretty sure she pays $36 to $40. She doesn't get a recycling cart. She gets these 2 clunky recycling bins that don't hold as much as my one recycling cart, and she gets one, it might be 96-gallon trash can. I know at some point she had 2 of them and she was paying $45 a month.
Because from what we received in 2030, our cost would be $47.20.
And I can about guarantee you, based on the increases that she's seen over the years, that Rumpke will be more than that.
Rumpke is at $33.18.
They're giving the city a deal. Is that at 30/30?
I believe that's
for 2030
in for either the 5 or 10 years.
I don't know if I buy anything they say, because they make a lot of promises to a lot of people. I know a business owner next to me that had Rumpke, and as soon as his contract renewed, they doubled his rates.
I mean, that's, and not to single you out, but you brought it up, so I'm taking this opportunity to dive in this a little more. I mean, that's ultimately the question that we are faced with, right? How much is the public willing to pay to have the service kept in-house?
Could we do a survey that we send out?
That's what I'd like to do, because I want to hear from people.
And I can't speak for everybody, so there might be some people that see this online and they're like, well,
what I said, I want to hear what
stop
people
talking,
have to
Adam,
say.
shut up. But I know me personally. Oh, and I meant to mention, so the other thing I wanted to ask, I know we used to have a program that people could tour the water plant, tour the sewer plant. I've asked for the last 2 years and haven't really had
He's right back there.
Well,
You
I
could
didn't
him.
ask him, I asked
Oh,
the
ask him.
city manager.
He's
I
right
will
back
ask him.
there.
But I will say Troy was kind enough when I was there doing some work for them to give me a tour of theirs, and you had already beat me to mentioning, but Troy did tell me they don't put fluoride in their water, so, and,
All right, so Kevin's back there. Go
okay,
ask him.
I will ask him, thank you.
Exactly, exactly. Ask him, he's right there.
I will move forward.
I will say, I have toured the water plant.
He has.
And
And I've been through the sewer plant as well.
I haven't been there. I think Mr. DeBras has been through the sewer plant.
I used to work there.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I will ask the city manager about if we can possibly go back to YouTube.
Ask.
My issue is not so much, even though, yes, that their streaming that they had on the last meeting was horrible. My phone was blowing up with people with comments. But my big thing is for people who are shut-ins, who don't have laptops or are not computer savvy, as long as they've got a TV, and any of the flat screen TVs nowadays have YouTube on them, and it's nothing to go YouTube, City of Piqua, boom.
The issue isn't so much whether it's on YouTube or our personal streaming service, it's that it's streamable.
Yes.
And I don't know that anybody was able to predict that it wasn't going to be streamable, so that's more of a, I guess, a technical challenge. But the reason, from my understanding, why we moved off of YouTube is that YouTube has chaotic terms of service that do not align well with sunshine laws. And so we were at risk of having non-compliance because of videos being removed or flagged or accounts being mismanaged. And so one of the reasons to move over to a unified system was to also maintain laws with, or compliance with the laws. But I don't know that it was predicted that we were going to also not be able to stream. I think that was the intention.
Well, we could actually have that storage of older meetings so that we comply with sunshine law and record keeping laws. But then for live stream, if we had it on YouTube, that way people, all they need is a television set. Newer television set, not, something from the 60s, but.
I think, Mr. Mayor, I believe that might be a good topic to have with, we have a public relations manager, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Have her come in and talk about it?
Yeah, it might be interesting to have, maybe at the beginning of the year, we can have a presentation about all the various ways that the public is able to interact with the city.
I think people would like to know what she does as
Yeah.
well, so.
I remember what I forgot to say in my commissioner's comment. If you did watch the news, AES, the new publicly held company that used to be called DP&L, just got a six-figure fine for unreliability, for not meeting reliability standards. Guess what? We won 2 awards here in Piqua with the Piqua system for a national award and a state award for reliability.
They also had a major incident up
That to me
in
was pretty
Sydney, too.
significant. It was on the news this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. They also had a major incident up in Sydney this week with one of their transformers.
But there's a federal standard that I can't quote it, but a federal standard for if you can't continually provide reliability, then there is a consequence through the federal, it's called FERC, I think it's Energy Commission or whatever at the federal level. And AES just got a 6-figure fine for that.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
thanks to our electric system.
Well, their rate's going up.
Last for public comments, Jeff Grimes. State your name and your address, sir.
Jeff Grimes. I moved again to 9300 State Route 66.
Where'd you live at before?
I was over here by Advanced Auto Parts. Okay, guys, I'm really concerned about what's going on out there. First of all, who's running the show? We did a fire training thing out there. So I've got some questions and I got some pictures. I come up with Piqua Energy Storage Research and Testing Center. Handler number ID OHR 000214551. And that address is 9300 State Route 66. and it says that it's a hazardous waste generator. What is going on out there? Is BGSU in charge of the fire school out there? Who was in charge of this burning? Was it accredited? Did any of you guys go out there and witness it? I've got about an hour in taping and I have pictures. 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Thursday. So they did 16 hours of burning at our protected water source. What is going on? Somebody says, oh, they're just having campfires. It wasn't campfires, guys. And I'm gonna go right off the EPA website. Wood smoke contains microscopic particles called fine particulate matter that can get deep into the lungs and other organs. These particles can cause or worsen respiratory illnesses such as asthma, bronchitis, and lung disease. Carbon monoxide. Wood smoke can increase the amount of carbon monoxide in the air, both indoors and outdoors. Carbon monoxide is a toxic gas that can cause sudden illness and death. Other toxic pollutants. Wood smoke contains other toxic air pollutants, including benzene, formaldehyde, acrolein, and polyachromatic hydrocarbons. Climate change. Wood smoke contributes to climate change by adding carbon dioxide and methane to the air. Straw. Straw releases a variety of toxic gases, including carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, sulfur oxides, and methane. Straw releases fine and ultrafine particles that can enter the bloodstream and deep into the lungs. PHAs, burning straw releases carcinogenic PHAs. Burning straw releases volatile organic compounds. Burning straw releases dioxins and furans. Burning straw can contribute to global warming by releasing greenhouse gases like methane and nitrous oxide. Why are we doing this? Did the city make money from any of these burns? How many Piqua firefighters were out there? Who provided the straw? Who provided the skids? When I saw them taking the straw and skids out, they were storing them in the chlorine room. That chlorine room is contaminated. Once again, did the city make money on these burns? Where does this money go? Still don't have the appraisal values concerning 9300 State Route 66. And when Scott Smith came, the city said that they would allow him to test at this site, but when he came, they wouldn't allow him. Who would not allow him to test on that site? So, all this went directly into town. We've got the dog park.
If you want to talk, you gotta go back there. Just pass those along. Go back there so everybody can hear.
Wow. You're not even going to look at them?
Go back to the microphone. Ask me for
You
the
gotta go back
microphone.
to the microphone,
No one can
please.
hear you.
They can't
You
hear
didn't
you.
even look at them.
No one can hear you. Go ask me from the microphone.
I'd just like to note that Mr. Homan wouldn't even look at my pictures. Thanks a lot, I appreciate that. So can you guys answer my questions about this? And if it's safe, like I said before, no problem with it. Put it right over here on this open lot, and everybody can enjoy it.
I would point out that I wrote an ordinance earlier in the year, and the commission passed it, that made destructive product testing of industrial equipment and chemicals illegal. If anybody has evidence of a crime, please bring that to our police department or to the sheriff to have that crime dealt with. I also pass by that training center every day, twice a day on my way to work, sometimes 4 times a day if I come home for lunch, and I do see them burning out there a lot. I see it with my own eyes. I don't need to see pictures of it.
So you had a lot of questions, and so all the questions were recorded, and we will write them down, or the city staff will write them down, and they will try and get you answers. Any other comments back to Mr. Grimes? With that said, I need a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Really? And I get to see my TV show tonight.